Thank you, Madam Speaker. This Congress has authorized $115 billion to Ukraine. My amendment would ensure that this defense appropriations bill sends no more. $115 billion is an astonishing amount of money, especially when you consider that our nation sits atop a $33 trillion debt, and we are facing $2 trillion annual deficits. And it is not as if the $115 billion has brought this conflict any closer to an end. In fact, the massacres and the killing and the death continue. The next statement is so obvious, I can't even believe I have to say it out loud. It does not make the United States of America stronger to borrow money from China to give it to Ukraine. I hear a lot of the war hawks in this Congress stand up and say, well, we have to send a message to China by fighting for however long it takes at whatever cost in Ukraine. The message we're sending to China is that they are engaged in a leveraged buyout of Russia and increasingly of our own country. We've got problems here in America with our own borders. Americans are watching as foreign flags are being erected in the middle of the Rio Grande River while our nation is being invaded tens of thousands every month. And yet we go spend all this money on the border of another country. I do not fear broken Russian tanks rolling through Europe. I fear Russia's nuclear weapons and the risk that we could be sleepwalking into a nuclear conflict that could end life as we know it on the planet, all for what? To live out some neoconservative dream in Ukraine? Give me a break. Right now, a lot of this funding that we've sent for Ukraine has been inflationary. Food and fuel. These are the markets that have been affected globally because of this crisis and because of the money we are spending to extend the conflict. At the beginning of this Congress, Speaker McCarthy said, there's not going to be a blank check to Ukraine. But when we bring witnesses before us to ask them whether or not we're complying with our own laws regarding end-use monitoring of materiel, they cannot say we're even following our own laws. Enough is enough. I'm putting my countrymen first, and I don't think we should send another nickel to Ukraine. I reserve.
Let's not abandon the EU and our NATO allies now. Let's not abandon Ukraine.
It seems the full sum of the argument against my amendment is Putin bad, which I concede. Matter of fact, Vladimir Putin has sanctioned me personally. So I don't have to be sold on that argument. He's a bad guy. The question is whether after $115 billion, it's the $300 million in this bill that's going to really kick the door in. And there's been no argument that that's the case because, of course, that would not comport with logic and reason. And when my colleagues say we cannot abandon the EU, that is like fingernails on a chalkboard to my fellow Americans who often feel like they are the ones who have been abandoned. As we send $115 billion to Ukraine and ignore what is going on our own border. We also ignore what's going on with a lot of our first responders. In our country, there are police and firemen who do not know if their pension fund will be strong enough to support their benefits throughout their life. We do very little on that front, but we have underwritten the full pension of every civil servant and government employee in Ukraine. Abandon them. I just don't think we should bankroll them, and that's why I would encourage the adoption of my amendment.
Congress has funded this initiative every single year since it was authorized in 2016.
So the argument my colleague made is, well, we've always sent this $300 million. And that may be true, but we used to send that $300 million when we weren't sending $100 billion supplementals on top of that. So I don't think that argument really holds water. And then when my colleague says, well, we can do both. We can secure Ukraine's border and we can secure our border. My argument would be, can we at least secure our own border first? How about that? How about prioritize our own people first before we start engaging in misadventures throughout Europe? The United States of America is not the world's piggy bank, and we are not the world's policeman. I applaud all of the enthusiasm in Ukraine. I am rooting for them, but enthusiasm in this country is waning to continue to support all of that effort abroad. We want to secure our border. We want to see enthusiasm with our border patrol, and we do not support continued inflationary, escalatory, dangerous spending in this war in Ukraine. I thank the House's indulgence for considering my amendment. I would encourage its adoption, and I yield back.